a recent reads, yay! Wait, the last 5 books you read in 2016? We're already in 2017. March, it's going to be April. What is going on? Erica, why are you so behind? I don't know, but look, there's a panda on my shirt and that makes everything okay. Let's talk about the last 5 books that I read in 2016. You ready? Let's go. I'm ready. Okay. The first 3 books that I'm going to talk about here, I read during nonfiction November, so you're going to see a theme. Just saying, throwing that out there. Cool. First up, we have Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer. What is Eating Animals about? If you guessed that it's about eating animals from the title, then you would be correct. High five to you. Round of applause. Congratulations. But it's much more than that. Jonathan Safran Foer spent a lot of his teenage and college years bouncing back and forth between enthusiastic carnivore and occasional vegetarian. When he became a husband and more importantly a father, his morals that he had, he started to question those very much when dealing with the fact that he had to tell his soon-to-be kid, you know, why is it okay that we eat some animals but we don't eat others? This book is part memoir and part investigative report. If you saw my video titled The Worst Books That I Read in 2016, you'll know that this book was on that list, and I was pretty shocked that it made that list. I was expecting amazing things from this book. And in some ways this book is amazing. The message of this book is amazing, but the book itself is not. I would like to share a quote with you that I did enjoy from this first. So, not responding is a response. We are equally responsible for what we don't do. In the case of animal slaughter, to throw your hands in the air is to wrap your fingers around a knife handle. That stuck with me a bit. It's very blunt and in your face, and I'm not necessarily saying that's something you need to agree with, but that's a quote that stuck with me. So like I said, in some ways this book is great. The message is great. This is a message that everyone should be aware of. Not enough people are aware of animal agriculture and the things that go on within it. But so many people love this book, and I think the reason why so many people love this book is because the people that aren't aware of animal agriculture read this book and they're so shocked and consumed by this book and what it's telling them that they're not actually seeing the book itself and how kind of badly written it is. It's not terribly written, but I didn't enjoy it. The book's narrative, the way it shifted back and forth between memoir and then investigative report, it didn't really mesh well. The timeline kept jumping back and forth everywhere. Overall, I think this book works, but just barely. It's held together by the message, and that's it. While I personally will not be running around recommending this book to every person that I see, I still think that if I came across someone that was interested in this, I would say, yeah, read it, because, you know, the message and the information and whatnot. But knowing me, I would probably go off on a documentary tangent because I'm such a documentary nerd, and I mean, just hear me out. I would recommend for you to watch Earthlings, Forks Over Knives, Cowspiracy. My personal favorite is Racing Extinction. Great documentary. Watch it. Watch them all. Yeah, so this book, not a big fan, but if you're interested in animal agriculture, again, you know, maybe check it out. The next book I have is A World Without Ice, that's upside down, by Henry Pollack, forward by Al Gore. This is a book about ice. The history of ice in particular, all that jazz, and also the history of ice and how humans have affected ice and all that jazz. A really fascinating read, really interesting, really depressing, but also slightly optimistic. Pollack doesn't hold back at all, one bit. He kind of slaps you in the face with how much damage we have done since the Industrial Revolution, and so forth. And even though this book is just a clear warning on climate change and that we're running out of time, we might already be on borrowed time, it might be too late, who knows, he still addresses the issue at hand while giving possible solutions, and with that as well, he gives multiple scenarios on how with this ever-changing climate, we are going to have to adapt, because that's just what you gotta do. You learn a lot with this book. There's a lot on sea level rise, melting of Arctic ice, ocean acidification, rising atmospheric temperatures, also a lot more that I just cannot remember off the top of my head, sorry. But yeah, that's about it with this book. I can't really think of any issues I had with this book. It's kind of just straightforward, in your face, you know, it's here to tell you what it needs to tell you, and it does that, and it was good. So if you're interested, I would highly recommend it. And then I read A Sea in Flames, The Deepwater Horizon Oil Blowout by Safina. A Sea in Flames is about the Deepwater Horizon oil blowout, also known as the BP oil spill, BP oil disaster, Gulf of Mexico oil spill. It's known as a lot of things, etc, etc. This happened on April 20th, 2010. This was written by Safina, as I said. This author mainly writes about conservation, ocean conservation, I'm pretty sure. If I'm not mistaken, I think he has a bachelor's in environmental studies and a master's and PhD in ecology, from what I remember, but I could be wrong. Don't hold me to that. He has a handful of books out there about conservation, and I want them all. I want them all now. I don't have them, but I will eventually. Back to the book. This book is told in 3 parts. Part 1 is the timeline leading up to the oil blowout and how that occurred, what happened, blah blah blah. Part 2 is more so a diary right after the oil spill. Mr. Safina spent some months in the Gulf, and it's just his account during that time. And part 3 is, you know, like the early aftermath. This book was written only a year after the spill, so it's an early look at the aftermath and some future predictions. If I remember correctly, I think I only gave this book 3 out of 5 stars, which isn't the best rating, but still, I did really enjoy this book. Part 1 and part 3 are really engrossing. You learn a lot. It's really eye-opening and depressing. I keep using the word depressing. But part 2, which was a good chunk of this book, was kind of not necessarily boring, but it was dragged out a bit and did at times feel like it wasn't adding much to the book, so I think that's why I gave it the lower rating. But even with that, there's so much that you could take away from this book. You learn how this could have easily been avoided and how the response to this disaster was a disaster in itself. The amount of wildlife that was lost due to direct contact, poisoning after ingestion, and then just loss of habitat is just wow. And then there's all the people who suffered from this. Not only the people that were killed from the event itself. I think 11 were killed and 17 were injured. But people who live on the coast near this spill, people whose lives depend on tourism and, you know, the fishing industry, all of that gone. I read this book because I really wanted to watch Deepwater Horizon, the film starring Mark Wahlberg, and that film ultimately was kind of disappointing for me. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I preferred this book way more than the film, so if I were to recommend one over the other, this book, you know, check this out. But yeah, I don't know. If you like Mark Wahlberg, then I would say watch it. And then I read The Changing Tide, Book 1 of Rogue Elegance by K.A. Dowling. I am so sorry. Names. Not good at them. The author messaged me on my Instagram. She asked me if I wanted to read her book because it was about pirates. You know, I said, give me your book now. Give me. I want it. I need it because pirates. This book is first in a trilogy, and you know, it's about pirates, as I said. It's young adult. This book centers on a young girl named Rogue who all throughout her childhood, she dreams of a life at sea. She lives in a kingdom where her people are treated incredibly poorly by their king, and it isn't until a mysterious pirate shows up that things begin to change. I enjoyed this book so damn much, I could not put this book down. Is it a great book? No. Is the writing amazing? Not necessarily, but it's not bad. But was it completely engrossing and enjoyable? Absolutely. And there are pirates in this, in case you didn't hear me say that earlier. Pirates make everything 10 times better, and you can try to tell me otherwise, but I probably won't listen. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this book to everyone, but if you enjoy young adult pirates, some romance and swashbuckling awesomeness, then this is the book for you. And the last book that I completed in 2016 was the third and final book in the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie, titled Last Argument of Kings. Because this is the last book in a trilogy, there honestly isn't much I can say without spoiling you completely, so I'm going to be very brief, but let me just say that this trilogy was everything I could have ever wanted and more. Joe Abercrombie, I love you. I love you. This trilogy is dark and gritty and filled with some of the most despicable characters. Terrible human beings, but you just can't help but love and root for them regardless of that because they're awesome. If you like dark epic fantasy, this is for you. And don't tell anyone I said this, but I prefer this over Game of Thrones. Shh. And those are the last 5 books that I read in 2016. Woo, yay. I haven't talked about any books that I've read in 2017, which is bad, but I will catch up eventually and you will see what I have been reading. In the comments below, if you have any thoughts or opinions or you just want to talk to me, I would love to hear from you guys. How are you? I hope you're doing awesome. I think that's all I really need to say. I will have a April TBR up in a couple days. I haven't filmed a TBR in forever, and you have no idea how much I miss my TBRs. I need that structure in my life. I do well with TBRs, so that will be up soon. I hope you guys have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in another video soon. And I mean it this time. Bye.